everybody is having a hard time, but we realize people are all coming together and supporting each other during this pandemic. Even neighbors, family, and friends calling each other and trying to support each other with this whole problem. It's also very heartwarming to realize that a lot of people is also supporting the first responders. They're calling, asking questions, they're asking for help, and if they can help the first responder in terms of what do they need. Because I myself is being asked by some close friends and say, oh, we're retired and we're really pretty much not doing anything or very much. If you need anything, you just call me. And I'm just, I couldn't imagine that people are doing this because they have extra time and they wanted to support you. Something like, what can they do for your pet, or what can they do for your younger children? And it's really very helpful for everyone. And then also in the hospitals, we realized that a lot of big industries is donating a lot of supplies, and they converted their their industry. Like now they can produce like masks, they can produce some face shields that they haven't done before. So they actually utilize their high school students that are out of school to produce these face shields, and they will come into the hospital and donate the face shields for no cost at all. So they also bring a lot of sanitizers, and they bring a lot of food. So the food part, I'm not too excited. Like, we don't do the food, but a lot of people bringing food. They said, okay, it seems like we're not eating well, but we do eat. But then a lot of restaurants, they tend to bring their pizza or some bento, and they just bring in, it's like every other day there's something in there in the hospital. Okay, so I want people to know that there's also a lot of first responders in the remote areas. So we're only thinking, like, say, here in Honolulu, because we live in Honolulu and we always listen to what's happening in Honolulu. But we don't realize that there's some remote areas also in Hawaii, like some remote areas in Maui, remote areas in Molokai, that they're also having a hard time with the pandemic. So I knew a few first responders who are assigned to work in those remote areas, and they actually live in Honolulu. So they fly into like Molokai or Maui on certain days, and they need to come back to their family. So most of the nurses are working 12 hours a day. So some of them, they fly for 3 days and then they come back home for 4 days, because they're only allowed to work 3 times a week. But since the restriction that even though you fly locally just into another island, that when you come back to your place of work, that you will be quarantined for 14 days. It's unbelievable that that these first responders have to sacrifice their time to work, and then when they come home, like, okay, what I'm gonna do? I'm quarantined 14 days, I cannot even work. So they have no exception. It feels like it's not best to actually control everyone. There's a certain control that may be not necessary, or there should be actually some type of exemptions to the first responders, that they in back and forth to their family and continue working in those remote areas. Okay. I've seen 2 cases of my friends who actually work in outer island in the remote areas, and they have to actually call in to their administrators or the CEOs of the hospital if they can be exempted from the quarantine, considering they just stay home for a few days and then come back into those remote areas. We are also afraid that we can get contaminated, or we can be sick also. So since we are in the front line, I don't actually work in the emergency room or intensive care, but I have a lot of friends who work in directly in front of people who are actually sick, and they themselves is very afraid. Like say in New York, I have several friends who work in the emergency room, and when I call them to check up on them and they say, "Oh, Marianela, I just want to make sure that I will survive this pandemic. If I survive, I will be very happy." Considering that the most of the fatalities is in New York and New Jersey, they feel like they can get sick or they can get contaminated and they could also die. So in their mind, they're thinking they just want to survive this and move on. So for us here in Honolulu, we don't have that much cases. So I think we're very lucky, and we're in a very happy mood that hopefully is also controlled for us. So not considering what's going on in other parts of the country. Okay, now this is how I take care of myself. Okay, so it's been like almost 3 months that we're into this pandemic. We want to make sure that we exercise. A lot of people is doing this, although they cannot go to the gym nowadays, but people are trying to do the regular exercises. I see a lot of people outside in the yard or in the locality, in the streets, and they're exercising morning and afternoon. So, which is very good. We try to eat healthy, make sure you eat the right kind of food, make sure you drink a lot of water, make sure you take a lot of vitamins, and sleep is very, very important. I tell my patients whenever they come in, when they do telemedicine nowadays, that I ask how they sleep, and they say, "Oh, we sleep," but sometimes really it's not good sleep because they worry a lot. So this is pretty much, we can't control behavior, or can't control, sometimes difficult to answer. So it's a big for them to have a very good sleep. We also need to avoid alcohol and drugs. We need to learn how to connect with friends and family. It's very helpful for their well-being. Okay. Before COVID-19, we need to get things done. And of course, we don't know this, that this is gonna happen, or is gonna happen to us very soon. But like say, dental appointments is canceled. Yeah, so you need to call, like say, call your doctor nowadays, or call your dentist, because they actually had resumed their services. Medications update. You know, you need to call your doctor and make sure, okay, do I have enough medicines? Because even now that we have restrictions on going to see our doctors, they can update your medications, they can do medication reconciliations, they can actually send you prescriptions to your pharmacy, so you have enough medication supply for the rest of the month or for the next 3 months. Now, a lot of problems with minor surgeries, because a lot of people was canceled because they thought that the surgeries may not be necessary at all to be done during this crisis, because consider that we have enough, like say, supplies in case there was a great pandemic or a lot of patients coming into the house. A lot of people had some minor surgeries that done. So nowadays, we are moving forward to our swing. Even hospital at Kapilani, they want to schedule all the minor surgeries, or the major surgeries are already in full swing. So if you know of anybody who is actually needing all these surgeries or all these appointments, they can best call their doctor nowadays and get an appointment, because it can be done already. Okay. Thank you. So what's most revealing? This is actually a big problem for all of us, that visitations to sick family members or sick patients is not allowed nowadays, because we have a big control of actually controlling the infection. So as soon as you enter the hospital, there will be somebody there, the security guard and the nurses will be checking you, checking your temperature, because we don't want contamination. So we want to control the pandemic. So it's very difficult for people who is actually have very sick members of the family who is in the hospital, and you cannot visit them. The only exceptions is the end of life. So if somebody is really dying, so hospice care or so, and delivery of a baby. So during delivery, only one person is allowed to stay with the patient, and you cannot switch visitor. So if the father of the baby is there and he is present during the delivery, he cannot go home and come back with a mother-in-law to replace him. No, they don't allow that. So whoever is that person has to stay there until the person is discharged. They're not allowing exchanges. So there's very minimal exceptions with visitations, and it needs to be approved by the institution because of control. So we're doing so well right now that Honolulu, or actually the whole state of Hawaii, has very low rates of the pandemic, the COVID-19 pandemic. Okay, so now we have switched to telemedicine. Telemedicine is so because we had closed down our clinic, and a lot of the doctors' clinic actually is closed down, and they switched to telemedicine. So this is everybody's new to this. Even me, I'm very new to this. So now we have to actually instruct patients to call us and then tell us about their problems. So a lot of Filipinos, since I work in Waipahu, and most of our clientele are Filipinos, this is actually not culturally acceptable to the Filipino community. The patient wants to see the doctor personally and speak to them and talk to them about their problems. So now it's so hard to train them. So usually our clerk will call the patient and will say, you just call this, use your computer, get somebody to help you, and then you'll be able to speak to the patient. So since the Filipinos are actually very adaptable people, they're also willing to learn. They say, okay, I'll try that since there is no way I could see the doctor. Or they may ask other family members to help them so that they can actually communicate to the provider. So as soon as I see the patient in telemedicine, they're very happy to see us. And then the next problem is language barrier. So some of them cannot speak very good English. So when I realize right away that they cannot communicate in English, then I speak to them in Tagalog, since I'm very fluent in Tagalog. And they say, okay, very good. We both speak Tagalog. And then now we can talk to each other much better. So another thing with telemedicine is people jump in, and most of the time they're not prepared. They didn't write down what they're supposed to tell their doctor. They feel embarrassed, and sometimes they're nonverbal. So then sometimes they will call their son, daughter, come over here and talk to the doctor, tell them what I need. And now there's 3 people you're talking to all together at the same time on telemedicine. So at times it could be a challenge, but after a while, even me and the patient can actually adapt to it, and then it will be much easier for everyone. This also could result in some disruptions in medical care, because some people, they don't like the telemedicine, and they'll say, oh, I'm not going to go see the doctor for a while after this pandemic is over, and we don't know actually when it's over, and then they don't come and see you at all. So we need a lot of people. I mean, sometimes we need some like say family members to be more vigilant and help support their family members so that they can actually access telemedicine and don't be afraid that that they cannot be assisted. Okay. And that's it. Salamat po. Thank you.
Salamat and agyamanak manang. Thank you for your reflections. I think it's so interesting to hear the sort of inside scoop, because I think everything that you're seeing on TV and on the, you know, in the media, it's obviously like hyper inflated always all the time, but it's really interesting to hear about the background, what's going on with just the regular hospital life. Because clearly there's like COVID is a whole situation that's being managed, but then there's like babies are still being born, you know, people are still trying to take care of their loved ones who are also in the hospital, whether or not they have COVID or whether it's COVID related or not. So thank you for sharing.
You're welcome.
We're going to do Q&A at the end, everybody. So if you guys have questions, you can throw them into the chat, or you could save them for the end. So if anyone has any questions for Manang Marianela, we can save them till the end. So I'm going to introduce Dr. Noelani Hobbs, who is a recent graduate from our Ilocano program. And I just wanted to share a quick like anecdote, because Manang Noe was in our our class like a couple years ago, and then she came back. And I remember, and I hope this isn't embarrassing, but I know it's not, because your first word, we were in our first class and everyone was sharing like one word that they know in Ilocano, and Manang Noe's word was ormot, which is like pubic hair. And I was like, oh my God, I can't believe she knows that. That's amazing. So I just had to share that. I was like, she's a doctor. She needs to know these this terminology. So anyways, that's a side note, but she's also a board certified family medicine physician. She was born and raised on Oahu, and she's a Pearl City High School grad. She also went to the University of Washington, and she's currently practicing with her mom in Waipahu, who's also a doctor. Her interests are dancing, singing, writing, poems, and traveling, which led her to be a former NFL cheerleader for the Seattle Seahawks. And we have someone here. Oh no, no one's from Seattle. I thought someone was calling you from Seattle. She's happily married to her loving and patient husband, and a proud mom to her 2 sons. And she's also on the board of governors for the Philippine Medical Association of Hawaii. And she's honored to serve the Filipino community. So thank you so much for being here, Dr. Noe. Welcome.
Hi. So for those of you that just heard, I'm Noelani Hobbs, and thank you guys so much for having me. Yes, finally, LAING 5 graduate. But I think I'm gonna have to take the course one more time, because going through all this now telemedicine and having to communicate online with my patients who do not speak very much English tells me, okay, I may have graduated, but I definitely need more work in the language. So let's see, and you did hear correctly. My mom has been in practice for 40+ years serving the Filipino community. She's originally from Ilocos Norte. And so she started her practice, gosh, in 1977, 78, something like that, in Waipahu. Same building, same place, same doctor. Only changes, I finally joined her after going through my studies. And so glad that I came back to Hawaii. There's such a culture here, which has become evident even before COVID, and just becoming more evident amid COVID, that there's no place like home. Number one, Hawaii has its own culture. And then also to be serving the Filipino community, which in itself is another culture. And I feel like even Filipinos in Hawaii is a completely different microcosm world of itself as well. And I'm just so thankful. I can't pick a better place to be during the COVID-19 pandemic, because as Marianela had pointed out, our cases are low. Our death rate we've been blessed, has been lower than most of the nation in the world. In fact, for a little remote island, not so remote because tourists can still come, but at least we've been doing a pretty good job of keeping infectivity rate and our mortality rate down. So that's a blessing. Let's see. So what can I add upon? I think mostly what I see in clinical practice, basically, of course, changes. One, protocols, as Marianela said, you have to be vigilant, washing hands, wearing masks, social distancing, which makes it very hard when you're trying to deliver care in a practice, because if you have 20, 30 patients waiting to be so it's kind of slow flow. And let's face it also, I mean, I have to put it out there, medicine is also a business. I have to think of, I need to be able to keep this business running to support my staff so they can still have jobs and be able to support their family, and to be able to keep them safe. So it's been a challenge, and we've had to kind of grow and adapt with everything that's going on. One thing, my mom still practices full time, although she claims she's going to retire, but I highly doubt it. She still comes in time after time again, and she's 74, will be 75 this year. So I kept her at home once this COVID thing hit the fan and told her, okay, you need to just hang out for about 2-3 weeks at home until we can get the protocols in place to keep you guys safe. So now what we're doing is patients that come in, unfortunately, our culture is a walk-in clinic. Most of my patients, they're walking down the street and I'll see them. I'm literally in the front, in the front looking outside, washing my hands because we have our kitchen there. And they're walking by and I know they had no intention of coming to see the doctor. And they do a double take and say, it's kind of like, let me just go in and see the doc, So we're so used to being open and walk-ins, but that we've had to kind of curb that at this point. It's appointments only. If we can accommodate walk-ins, we will. However, We will not see you if you are, one, if you don't have a mask, two, if there's any sore throat, fever, that type of stuff. It's not that we won't turn you away, but we kind of have to turn that visit into an online telehealth visit, which makes it very hard. Because as Marianela pointed out, technology is an issue, the language barrier. I mean, just even using a smartphone or computer, that's not even in their, you know, their daily routine. It's not something they would know how to do. And they're just so used to being able to see the doctor, have the doctor touch them. There's so much therapy in the touch of another person. And I feel like sometimes my patients come in, sometimes really nothing. There's nothing wrong with them, but they, you know, they'll have their, you know, maybe refills, and really they just needed me to talk to them, and they just really need me to put that stethoscope on their chest, and all of a sudden they're better. A lot of times my visits are just reassurance and that human touch. And I think although that need for reassurance has become more so in this time of anxiety and uncertainty, and I mean, let's face it, sickness and death, unfortunately, I can't deliver that touch as much as I'd like to. So that has also produced some challenges being a healthcare provider, especially in the little knit, close-knit clinic and the people that we serve in that community. So, I mean, I would say 95%, Marianela is correct, in Waipahu, they call it the mini Manila or the mini barrio, if you will, of Hawaii, because majority of the inhabitants are of Filipino ancestry. And I would say 95%, if not more, of our patients are Filipino. And it just turned out that way. I think, one, because my mom obviously is Filipino, but just because of the location as well. So it's provided some challenges where now, even though we have, like I said, 20, 30 patients sometimes waiting, we have to keep them inside their cars. We'll call you when you're next up. Just keep your phone on, what have you, or we'll have one of the girls go out to their car, do a temperature check first and foremost, and then bring them on in. We only allow maybe 2 to 3 patients in our office at a time. We have a pretty small practice, and this is just to protect my staff, myself, my mom, and also my patients as well. What else have we seen? Also, yes, so hypervigilance, like I said before, it was like on a day-to-day basis, you know, making sure all surfaces are clean, you know, washing our hands in between each patient. Now I feel like it's minute per minute. My mind is going a million miles per second, where it's, oh my gosh, I put my pen on this surface. Did it touch anything else? Did I sanitize it first? So we have to be kind of hypervigilant, which we didn't have to be before. I feel like healthcare, I love. I would not, if I had to do things over again, I don't think I would choose anything else. And I think I would end up the same place I would be, in Waipahu, serving the Filipino community. But it is draining. Even before COVID, you know, you're already worrying about how can I treat this patient, whatever their chronic comorbidities, whether it's blood pressure, diabetes, but also a lot of mental and a lot of sociological, a lot of, what is it? Emotional, you know, needs that you're trying to provide to a certain community. And so now, compounded with the COVID, now you're also thinking of other things where you want to make sure you're not exposing them, you're not exposing yourself and making other people sick. For instance, I think constantly of my husband and my 2 kids, my 15 and my 4-year-old. I want to make sure I don't bring anything home to them. So with that said, yeah, it's been draining and it's been rough, because we're constantly providing not only medical care, but reassurance. Everything's going to be okay. Hey, I got a little tickle in my throat. Do I have COVID-19? So there's a lot of education, a lot of reassurance, a lot of, okay, what do you do to help yourself relax so you're not staying up all night, every night? You know, so we talk about deep breathing, reading a book, maybe trying not to concentrate on the negative things that are going on in the world. Take a break from social media, for goodness sake, once in a while, because sometimes all that negativity tends to just kind of encroach in your world. Unfortunately, because it's such a busy practice, I can't spend like an hour like I'd like to, you know, addressing some of those things. Sometimes I kind of have to just get in and get out because I have other patients and to respect their time with their appointments. So I'm so glad that we have the ability to refer to patients, or refer our patients to people like Miss Elaine, who you're going to hear to speak, and the other great providers in our community, whether they're psychotherapists, counselors, psychiatrists, what have you. But we do what we can. I think in the Filipino community, they look to their family practitioner as almost to meet almost all their needs, not just their medical, but also their emotional, their well-being for that matter. And a lot of times I'll try to refer and they'll say, no, I just want to talk to you. And it's like, and sometimes we can do that. My mom and I can certainly do that, especially my mom, since she's probably known these patients for 20, 30 years. But other times I also know my limitations, like, hey, I would love to, but because either time constraints or just because of my sheer ability. You know, I was trained in family medicine. It's kind of like we dip and dab a little bit in mental health, et cetera. We do certainly have the tools, but you would be better served by someone that does this full time, depending on the severity of the patient's symptoms. Let's see, and like Ms. Marianela said, that, you know, telehealth has been more so. It's, and I would say my patients have been embracing it pretty well because the fear of catching anything overwhelms them more so than not being able to see their doctor. And once they get to know how to use it, they love it because they're doing it on their lunch break. Some of my essential worker patients, they can do it in between. You know, hey, they got to make a living. They don't have to take off to see the doctor. They don't have to get a sick note or FMLA or what have you filled out. They just do it, you know, I see they're in their hairnets and their masks, and we'll do a quick talk, and they got their coworkers passing behind them, and we can kind of address their needs very quickly, especially if it's just a medication refill. And I think it does help to have some FaceTime for that reassurance. And again, yes, with the language barrier and the technology barrier, one with the language barrier, then I'll sit my mom in front of the computer who's very anti-technology right now, but no choice. And she can, you know, converse with them and they'll feel a heck of a lot better where they don't have to figure out, oh, how do I translate exactly how I feel from English, from Ilocano to English. So that we've been able to solve that issue. And then two, with the technology, accessing it, that has been a challenge. Sometimes one of my medical assistants will spend, I want to say almost 45 minutes to an hour trying to navigate, like, okay, Manang, you just click the button, say that you allow the, you know, microphone and you allow the camera, and they can't do it. And it's frustrating because, you know, it's a lot of time and resources out of the office and what they could be doing. However, we know it's a necessity because with COVID not going away anytime soon, this might be the trend where telehealth may have to be a part of life, just like masks now will have to be a part of life eventually. And it probably was trending that way anyway in terms of telemedicine. I think COVID-19 just kind of sped things up as to that trend of seeing a doctor online at their convenience from their own home or work or car or wherever. But one thing I have seen, though, it's great, I will see a great grandmother talk to their great granddaughter or great grandson to help them. Like, oh, Anako, can you help me with this? And da-da-da. And, you know, and they're trying to navigate this while I'm, you know, in the middle of a patient call because the volume went off or something went on the fritz. So it's nice to see because you'll see multiple generations working together where even though they lived together pre-COVID, they didn't necessarily interact a whole lot. We had school, we had sports, other things, and now they're at home. So guess what? Who you interact with? You interact with those closest to you. And it's nice to see. It's nice to see a joining of the generations in ways you probably would not have seen prior to COVID or as much, you know, prior to COVID. So there's definitely some heartwarming moments there. And then in terms of the in-person visits, Marianela was correct. Some patients refuse. We'll say, hey, it's safer for you, safer for me. They're like, no, I need to see you. Okay. And so, you know, temperature check. That being said, we'll have, you know, our PPEs on, you know, limited amount because I'm not in the hospital. I don't do intubations. So I don't have to have as much PPE as, for instance, someone in urgent care or ER where you don't know what's going to walk in there. And we have some control of who we see and how we see them. And yes, it's true. They feel like they cannot be treated unless they see you in person. And aside from doing the very basic exam, it's sad because I'm so used to hugging my patients. I'm so used to grabbing their hand when they're scared or upset, and I have to, you know, remind myself I have to keep that at a minimum. Probably no hugging. I will still grab their hand. I mean, I am gloved, even with or without gloves, just because I have to listen and, you know, auscultate the lungs. I'm already close. I'm already disrupting that social distancing by need of having to do a physical exam. And I will quickly grab that hand and say, hey, it's going to be okay. We'll get through this. But gosh, I just feel so blessed because the Filipino community, I feel, are just so humble, so grateful for the little that I feel that I do for them. And it just makes coming to work a joy. I will admit, with the COVID and just already the stresses of being a healthcare worker, even before COVID, there were a couple times when when COVID was the uncertainty and people were dying and we just didn't know what was going on, I would spend maybe 5 to 7 minutes in my car just crying. I'm not afraid. I just bust out crying because in my mind is like, do I have the strength to do this today? Do I have the mental capacity to deal with what comes at me and to be there for my patients? And then of course the guilt, can I be there for my family as well? Because it is draining. Every patient I see, I give a piece of me. I give a part of me. And I think that's just how my mom and I have always conducted our business. And I think most doctors are like that as well, and healthcare workers. And so by the time I get home, I have nothing to give, literally very little to give to myself, to my 2 kids, and to my husband. And that has been a problem. So one thing I did have to do was I did take a vacation recently, because I just felt as you know, that word burnout, compassion, fatigue. Sure, I have compassion, and that never stops. But sometimes that your toleration level for certain things, you're like, oh, okay, here we're in a pandemic. I've treated your diabetes and this, but you want to complain about your big toe. Help me, please. Why? You know, but to that patient, it's very important. And it may be something that's causing or disrupting their, you know, their life. And usually under normal circumstances, I'm able to, you know, I get that. But with everything going on, like I said, with the fatigue, sometimes those things you feel like, oh, just doesn't matter. But it does, you know, and so I really had to be sure I had to take time for myself because I felt like, whoa, I'm becoming very jaded, very negative, and it didn't show through in how I treated my patients. They could still feel the love, but it was changing me. I just knew because as soon as I closed that door, you know, and going to work was not a joy anymore. It was more of a task. And I think people go through that no matter what you do in life. You have your peaks and your flows, or your peaks and your valleys where things are up, things are down. So I took a week off. I was supposed to take a week off anyway to go to a girlfriend's wedding, but with travel shut down and everything else, and a marriage retreat with my husband, actually, and that of course was canceled. So I took that week off anyway. First 2 days, I vegged out in my room, stayed in my pajamas. I'd like to say I brushed my teeth every day those 2 days. I'm pretty sure I did, but I just did nothing. Rested, recuperated, rejuvenated, and refilled. My tank was empty. It was pretty much running on empty. It was running on fumes. And then after that, I spent the next 5 days with my family to appreciate, to love on my sons, to love on my husband, because I feel like during the quarantine, I didn't have that luxury to stay home and, you know, find new meaning in life, etc. You know, and you can still do that working, but I just felt I'm so by the minute, I'm concentrating on everyone else, or I became last and my family kind of fell by the wayside. So that week, I just felt really rejuvenated. I read, I meditated, and for those that are religious, I am Christian, Catholic, you know, baptized, you know, Catholic, but I do practice Christianity. And so for me, I was able to kind of go through with my online church services and just read and just take time for myself, no matter what it was, whether it was baking a batch of cookies or what, just to do something for me, just because I had the time to do it. So I think that self-care is so important, whether you're a frontline worker or not, because it just makes you a better person to serve others, whether you're serving in a sister capacity, a daughter capacity, a mom or father, a son, whatever capacity, whatever hats you wear, you need to take care of yourself to take care of other people. And so I'm very excited to be part of this well-being series, because I feel like not only can I impart some knowledge, but I can certainly learn. And I'm just so excited to see the speakers that are presenting today and the future weeks, because I'll certainly be a part of it, because we all can take a piece and apply that to our personal lives. So thank you very much for allowing me the time to speak.
Thank you, Manang. That was awesome. And thanks for sharing and just being open with us. We always appreciate your energy is always really refreshing. And it's really important to know that, like, I think I totally resonate with the peak and valley situation too, especially going through this whole situation. Like, you could be at the beginning of the day super stoked, I got this, and then like something happens halfway through and you're just like, I don't think I can freaking handle this anymore, you know? So I can relate. I'm sure everyone on the call can relate, whether or not you're working doing that or you're just at home. So thank you for sharing that. So it's 10:47. I'm gonna pass the mic and introduce Miss Elaine Hicks, who is an educator, a social worker, a counselor, and a compassion fatigue prevention educator. She's also studying to get her PhD currently. She studies the science of inspiration, well-being, and post-traumatic growth. And she has advanced degrees in psychology, applied forensic psychology, organizational psychology, and social work. She's extremely credited, people. I love reading all the accreditations on after Elaine's name. Is awesome. She's certified in art, mindfulness, and well-being therapies, among other modalities. And she's done a lot of work with the severe and persistent mentally ill and homeless populations on Oahu. So we're really grateful to have Elaine here. And I know there's a lot of stuff to share, so I'm just gonna pass the mic and let her get into it. So thanks for coming, Elaine.
Thank you too. I'm so happy to be here and to be able to contribute back to the community. I did case management on Oahu since 2009 or 10. I just stopped a couple of years ago, but I spent a lot of time in the Filipino community helping a lot of different individuals, and I had a lot of different connections there. So I always enjoyed being able to go into the care homes, and I feel like, you know, I know Noelani and Marianela, your names seem really familiar to me, but it's been, like I said, a couple of years. So, and I'm excited to be able to share some tools, but I wanted to give a little background to maybe explain some of the reasons of why we might be experiencing some things that we are in relation to this pandemic. And Noelani touched on several of them, but you know, I've been focusing on post-traumatic growth and working with trauma-related outcomes since 2011. I've developed a bunch of different trainings, mostly for mental health providers. But what I've noticed lately, and what's been concerning to me from what I've been hearing with the counselors I've been working for, is we're shifting from a sense of compassion fatigue, which is really being exposed to a lot of trauma stories and secondary traumatic information, which causes kind of a mirror of those same traits in the provider. But what I'm starting to see now is something called empathy fatigue rather. And that's because we're exposed to so much fear right now through social media. We're all receiving a lot of trauma inputs from social media, from our friends, from our clients, from our patients. You know, as a mental health provider, you have to hear this. You have to be present and listen to your clients as they're talking about the same things you're experiencing. But, you know, with our ethics and things, we can't always relate this to the client or the patient. We can't say, oh my God, I'm feeling the same exact thing. I'm freaking out too. Let's just do it together. It's not going to happen. It doesn't work that way. So what I've been hearing a lot from a lot of the counselors is that it has gone beyond compassion fatigue. Their empathy is now being depleted because of the work that they're doing with their clients, and then going home, and what do you have to give to anybody else? What do you have for yourself? Especially if you haven't been sleeping, because it's on your mind, it's pressing. I know for me at the beginning, I had a really hard time sleeping. I had this crazy need to stay online, to check social media, and to check the news and check our rates. I was terrified about it. And I got a hold of it pretty quickly because I could see where the downward spiral was going to happen. And I've got to be present for a lot of other people. So I got that under control. So just explaining empathy fatigue might help set up for the tools that I want to share. And I have a lot of really cool tools I want to share with you guys that I actually have tested out every single one of them, and I do them. And I feel like that's why I'm able to still keep my balance in healthy boundaries when I'm working with people because of these tools. So they'll be able to help you. You can do them with your family. You can pass them on to your clients or your patients. So they're all multicultural. That's very important to me. And anybody with almost every ability will be able to use these tools. So let me just talk briefly about what empathy fatigue looks like. So we have 3 types of empathy. And the first is cognitive, or being able to take someone's perspective. Now, when we're looking at the current pandemic and the threats that we've been seeing, especially looking at Italy and Spain and New York and Jersey, we start to question how safe are we, especially having to go into the clinic you know, and you want to touch your client, you want to bridge that gap and give them that support they need. Well, first you have a barrier, you have your mask and you have your PPE. So naturally, you're not able to communicate the way that you normally would. So it makes us start questioning the world. So our frame of reference or our worldview starts to shift a little bit. We start wondering how safe we really are. And almost everyone starts to become a threat. At this point too, we're all very hypervigilant, which I'm sure many of you know that's an aspect of post-traumatic stress. It's also an aspect of secondary traumatic stress. So now we're all kind of experiencing these high levels of hypervigilance, which are extremely exhausting. And it can cause you to start questioning your ability as a provider, which is totally normal because you're not feeling that ability to take the perspective of your patient or your client and give them that empathy that you're used to doing. So that leads us to the second type, which is emotional empathy. And that's being able to really accurately detect the emotional information that's coming from another person. So that's reading their body language, their facial expressions. Now we can't do that with someone who has a mask on. Sure, we can look at their eyes and we can kind of pull information from there, but when most of your information is coming from here or your whole body and you're covered in PPE, you can't convey that natural sense of warmth. You might be trying to, but you have all these barriers in place. So that makes us start questioning, you know, again, our abilities as a provider. And then, do I really want to connect right now? Am I in the best frame of mind or state to connect with my clients, to connect with my patients? You know, our self-capacity starts feeling a little bit challenged because I'm starting to feel like I can't really do my job. And now I don't know if I really want to do my job right now because I need a break. I'm already overwhelmed and so on. And so you kind of go down this negative spiral. And then the final one is the sense of compassionate empathy. And that's what gives us insight to solve the problems of our family, our clients, our patients. Even I've expanded frontline workers to include retail staff, you know, because they are receiving the brunt of a lot of people's fear and frustration. And it's hard. My oldest daughter works at Whole Foods and she calls me crying. You know, she works in Virginia because of this verbal abuse she's getting from some of the people coming into the store. They're scared and they're angry, you know, so telling her, hey, if they're angry, just listen to what they need. What are they complaining about? Give that to them. You know, so just, I don't want to go down that path, but I think that we need to include our retail staff too. So when our compassionate sense of empathy is impacted, our pro-social helping behaviors are also starting to change. We can't really come up with a good treatment plan maybe, or how to help our kid at school. So I think this is just affecting everybody and it's completely normal. And I think normalizing it is one of the most important things that we can do, not only for ourselves, but for our clients, patients, or customers. It's okay that we're feeling this way and it's gonna get better. Now, I think with the mental health field, it's gonna get worse before it gets better, especially people maybe working in hospitals because they're maybe running on a lot of adrenaline right now. And when you're at that point, it's super easy to ignore all of these feelings because you're go, 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 go. And as soon as things start reopening like they are, I feel like we're gonna start to see an increase of different kinds of stress reactions in people. Now that we can go back to the doctor, maybe we can start getting some things fixed. People are gonna start relaxing their guard down and have these huge upticks of different kinds of emotions. So I wanna jump straight into the tools because that was kind of maybe a little negative and I wanna keep it as positive as possible. So each of these tools will help re-engage those types of empathy. And like I said, I've tried all of these. So the first is looking at positive emotions. And that is a cornerstone of well-being. There's 5 aspects to well-being, and positive emotions is the first. This is how we jumpstart into the rest of them. I could probably talk about this for hours and hours and hours, and I have. So don't let me go over time. Please keep an eye on me. But when we're feeling positive emotions, we're jolted into a different way of thinking. We become more creative, we become more broad-minded, and it sets up a virtuous cycle. So we continue to keep feeling them. So it's pretty awesome, and it's also free. and you can do it anywhere, and you can do it at any time. And I've worked a lot with the population who are in jail. I work with a lot of offenders, and I was thinking, how can I come up with something they can do? Because they can't have paper, they don't get to have pens and crayons and markers, they can't do art therapy. So I sent Rebecca a toolkit, and I'm pretty sure she'll be able to share that with you guys. But I have designed some postcards over time with each of the interventions or tools I want to share. So the front has a picture that I've taken. I'm also an artist. And the back has the directions for the intervention. So the first positive emotion, which is, I feel like, the grandfather, the master of all of the rest, is gratitude. And I'm sure you've heard a lot about gratitude. It's been studied extensively, probably the last 5 or 10 years. But for me, it's like a magic potion. It's an antidote to getting caught up in that negative spiral, which is so easy for us to do, especially when we're around a lot of people who are scared, they're fearful, they're transmitting a lot of negative emotions. We pick up on that easier than the positive, unfortunately, until we can jumpstart this virtuous cycle I was talking about. So there's 3 components to gratitude. It's a lack of sense deprivation. It is appreciation for simple pleasures and social appreciation. It also is a key component of mindfulness. So it's kind of like you're getting a double bonus there when you start working with gratitude. Now, it also helps our self-worth. It bolsters our self-esteem, and it helps to reduce stress levels as well. And it's very simple to do. So the first way you can start with the gratitude practice is simply writing down 3 things a day you're grateful for. Now, a lot of people have asked me, does it have to be mystical? Does it have to be spiritual? And I'm like, no, it can be the chicken you picked up from Costco, so you didn't have to make dinner, you know. And over the years, I've collected more than 1,000 responses, and one person said they were grateful for AC/DC. They're grateful for heavy metal because it gave them a release. And I thought that was awesome. There's been big bird socks, and then there's been being able to hike, being able to snorkel. So it can be anything. It doesn't have to be complicated. This is 5 minutes a day. So when I started doing this in 2015. At the end of 16, I had 2,000 things I had written down. Every day I started anticipating and looking forward to writing down the 3 things that I was grateful for. So what happened was those 5 minutes turned into 1,825 minutes being in a state of gratitude. And I can't tell you what that does for your self-esteem, for your positive thinking, being able to reframe situations into a positive, problem solving. If you're dating, it makes you super attractive. People want to be around you if you're a grateful person. You're smiling a little bit more. You're more productive at work. Your organizational citizenship behaviors increase. So it has this really huge rippling effect. Plus, it's very contagious to other people. Now, I've shared this with all the classes I've taught at UH, with all of my practicum students, and they still will write to me and tell me that they're still doing it. They'll send pictures of gratitude jars and gratitude journals. So that's included in the toolkit. There's also a gratitude visit and gratitude mapping, which is kind of like a mind map. So not every intervention fits everybody perfectly. So that's why I kind of put down a couple of different ones. You can test them out. For me, it was easier with my coffee ritual every morning, just kind of jot these 3 things down. So it was a huge game changer for me, and it has been for a lot of clients that I work with. But if you're still having a problem with the writing part, which I totally get, sometimes, you know, I've been doing so much education, I get really tired of writing everything down. I have another one. So this is like the sister to gratitude. It's called Savoring. Also included in your toolkit. Oh, sorry, can't see it. Basically, this gets you outside, again, free. You use your phone on your camera. You find a beautiful natural event. It could be a sunset. It could be some flowers. It could be a mango tree. It could be anything. What you want to do is take a picture and become really present and mindful in the moment. Think about the birds that you're hearing, the traffic that is passing by, the sweat on your forehead because you've just walked 3 miles and you finally found something pretty to take a picture of. And you go ahead and snap a photo maybe jot down 2 or 3 lines from this experience and you share it to social media because you want to start this ripple effect. So the next day you're going to do that again. You're going to do that for 21 days. And sorry, excuse me. When you're doing this, you're finding things you need for your gratitude list too, by the way, if you're going to do both. If you do both, it's definitely a bonus. So what this does is it activates a part of our brain called the ventral striatum, which is also a reward center. Now, this particular intervention or tool is really effective with teenagers, just by the way. I've read some research on how it helps them with combating addictions, but it also helps get them more present and engaged in things outside of their phone, even though they're going right back to it. It kind of helps take them away from that. So the ventral striatum is also responsible for the dimmer switch that affects depression and anxiety. So the more often you're doing this activity, the more the lights are going on. So it gives you more control over how much anxiety you're feeling, and it just kind of helps quiet that down just a little bit. So let me jump to the next one. I was hoping I would stay under 20 minutes. I'm not sure how I'm doing. So awe, A-W-E, that's the next positive emotion. So it's like awe is the sister or brother, cousin maybe, to gratitude. Now, they've been studying this extensively for the last 2 years. I'm not sure if you've had a chance to hear about it on the news. It's probably been completely cloaked over by COVID-19. It's kind of exciting stuff because this one will really address all 3 levels of empathy and repleting those depleted stores. So awe is the emotion that we feel in response to something that's very vast, and it defies our existing frame of reference in one way or another. This could also be very spiritual for some people. It can also be very scary depending on how you choose to elicit awe in your life. What's really nice about awe is that it encourages social bonding and connections. It actually increases pro-social behaviors, collaboration, and commitment to the social collective, which is also very cultural, both for my culture and I believe also for the Filipino culture. So this definitely binds people together. It's a driver of group cohesion and coordination and loyalty. So you're probably wondering, how is this all happening from this one emotion? Well, it has a lot to do with transcending and generating feelings of interconnectedness. So I was trying to figure out, how can I do this? How can I help people get this feeling without having to climb whatever the tallest mountain in the world is, right? You know, I'm scared of heights. I'm not doing that. So and like I said, I've tested out every single thing. So I started with snorkeling and hiking. So you're looking for vastness of space. You're looking for, a lot of people have gone to church and they've been connected that way, getting connected back to their spirituality or their religion, however you would like to classify that. So if we think about the ocean, if we think about storms and mountains and those feelings they generate in us, what you're feeling is awe and you're feeling wonder. And one of the other really nice things about awe is it helps you build new skill sets that you probably didn't realize you could build. So I was afraid, even being here 12 years, of being out in the open water, which I'm sure that's a healthy, normal, natural fear. But I decided I'm gonna go snorkeling. I'm not going to Hunama Bay. I'm going to Electric Beach. I'm going out there and I'm doing this. Of course, I didn't go alone. So I started down this path of looking for these experiences where I was challenging myself and learning new skill sets and then getting this sense of wonder. And I have had the most incredible experience with that. And again, it's free after you buy your stuff, you know. So you're building connections with people, you're meeting people out there. Maybe you're seeing dolphins, maybe you're seeing turtles, stingrays, manta rays. And all of this, it works together with the gratitude. It's making you more mindful, you're more present in the moment, you're digitally detoxing, and you're building skills. So once we've done all that, now we like to volunteer. We like to reconnect with people again. We have these amazing stories to share. And we have a lot to write down on our gratitude list. Recently, I went out to, I'm not supposed to tell everybody where, but I went to Makua Beach and I got to swim with the dolphins. And I can't tell you how amazing that experience was. And then to take other people out there and share that with them. Still scary, very awe-inspiring because it was super scary. But I'm not saying you have to do that. Maybe you go for a nice walk, you go to the beach, you watch the sunset, getting connected and being mindful about that connection. So some other ways you can do that, I have prompts with this card as well, is thinking about a time where you were in those kind of experiences and reflecting about it. And then also just doing some random acts of kindness for other people, like feeding a meter, thanking a cop, you know, paying for someone's coffee, and you know, if we can do that now, you know, who's in line behind you, opening a door, doing these kinds of things, getting reconnected with people. And now all of those will build back up those levels of empathy and help build up your sense of connection. And like I said, you can do this with yourself, your family, your kids. Kids love the gratitude jar, especially decorating it. So then I have two more, almost done. The next one, this is actually out at Nimitz Beach rather, here on the west side. This is a really cool spot to go to, but this is a 30 circles challenge. And I think almost everyone I've done this with has really hated it and loved it at the same time, because you have 3 minutes to fill in every circle with a picture. Those are your only rules. That's it. 3 minutes, 30 circles, every single picture. So what this does is it helps break you out of being stuck in a problem. It is a design thinking tool, actually, and I learned about this from attending a design thinking workshop, so I totally stole it from architects. They were like totally okay with it. So that helps, you know, bypass, you know, being stuck on a problem, because I know when we focus so much on one, it's really hard to come up with the solution. Plus, it's kind of fun, and it can shift your mood significantly just by doing that, because you're challenging yourself and you're reaching a goal, which are other aspects of having high levels of well-being. So the last tool gets you out of all of this thinking and writing. It's gets you back grounded. It kind of bypasses all the chatty parts of your brain. This has been one of my favorite things recently to do. It's painting rocks, y'all. Rock painting. I learned about this in an art therapy class I was taking. So it's super easy. I just brought some to show you. We started off with the easiest thing. These are cacti. I actually have a whole like bucket of them. And it was super fun. All of my friends came over and we did this for hours. It's very inexpensive. It's kid friendly. And like I said, it bypasses all these verbal centers in your brain and shuts down that nervous chatter. I'm trying to pull all this stuff over here. So I went to Home Depot and I bought a bag of river rocks. And it was like 20 bucks for 80 pounds. Like I still have this huge bag sitting in my backyard. Like 5-6 people that we've been painting consistently, I still have a ton of rocks. You'll need some Mod Podge because you want to seal them after so they're safe for the environment in case you decide you want to leave them anywhere. You just need some paint, maybe some Sharpies, some Sharpie painting pens, some brushes, and go to Pinterest and look up some lines, rocks of kindness. That's what we've evolved to. We went from the cacti, ladybugs. I got googly eyes on there. So we've gone to painting more intricate, maybe Hawaii-based things. I couldn't believe I was able to pull this one off. And then on the back, just writing something on there and leaving it somewhere for someone else. So, hey, there you are doing your awe, your gratitude, you're savoring, and you're giving back to the community. Here's another one. So my skills have gotten much better since we've started. It's really hard because you have to super focus on this really small area. And let me tell you, I've been out there for 4 hours and didn't even realize it. So, and here's another one, Little Mermaid tail. And I've been leaving them out where I go snorkeling or diving or hiking. I haven't seen anybody post to my social media yet that they found it. I left one at the Buddha at Electric Beach, out at Makua Beach, and one of the trails that we've hiked. So it's an inexpensive activity. It's really good for, you know, when you're feeling anxious or tense. It's also very relaxing. And I like it because my friends will come over. We're all avoiding alcohol because we did tend to gain a little weight at the beginning of the quarantine. So we're having coffee or water and we're painting these rocks. So it's just a good way. And we've been together the whole time. Let me just say that for safety. We've never stopped, you know, spending time together throughout the entirety. And we all know where we're going most of the time anyway. So I don't want you to think I'm being unsafe, but that's what I wanted to share with you. And I really appreciate you listening and your time. I'm not sure if anyone has questions. I haven't looked at the chat while I've been chatting. So.
Thank you so much, Elaine. I'm giving you a round of applause. For some reason, I can't find my little button, my reaction button here, but thank you so much for sharing all of those awesome emotions. I feel like that was, it's so important to go back to. I love the gratitude. I personally was like really frustrated and angry and tired yesterday, and I was like, oh, I don't know what, I was running around the kitchen like all flustered, and I just had, there was a glass of water and I just like started chugging it, and I just looked at the water and I was just like, oh my God, thank you so much. Like, I'm so grateful for this water right now. Thank you, you know? And it just totally, like that 1 second of just like flashing back into the moment and being like, hold on, like I'm so, this is like exactly what I needed right now. And I think just walking through all those emotions is really powerful, because you forget. I mean, you're so wrapped up. Everyone's so wrapped up in so many different things. I think because there's not that many of us on here, I think we could probably unmute and just kind of like do some dialogue and Q&A right now if people want to. If it gets weird with, it might get a little weird with the speaker and like the captioning and stuff like that. But we could try it, or maybe one at a time, a bit easier. But I know there was I think Anthony had a question. I'm gonna scroll back.
Noelani answered it in the chat, but if you wanted to share it to the group, we can.
Yeah, okay. I just wanted to see. So Anthony asked, Manang Noelani, I like that you mentioned the need for a sort of reassurance from your patients, and have you translated that skill of reassurance to other parts of your life, like for example, to friends and family that you're not in contact with? If you do, how do you do that? And he's asking for tips for family and friends that he can't be in contact with. And so Noy said, I think education is a huge key to reassurance. If my family and friends are at home and worried, I let them know they're low risk because they're at home. I educate them on the virus transmission and how to decrease their exposure, whether they're at home or out in the community. So yeah, I think I do that with my mom too. You know, she's like at home all the time. She's so worried, like watching the TV. And I'm like, Mom, like you're not even going anywhere. It's okay, you know, like it's I get that you're worried. Like I don't want to discount her emotions, right? But I don't know if Manang Marianela wants to add to that at all. Like, how do you reassure your clients or reassure your patients, or if Elaine has anything you guys want to add to that question of, yeah, like how do you reassure people?
This is my items today. Besides the crystal bar soap, I'm gonna be stocking these tricolor calcites that are a nice palm in hand. So those are gonna be random selection or intuitively selected on the website. Same with these red and white.
Someone's unmuted. Okay, I know. Everyone's multitasking. It's okay. It's totally okay. Well, we don't have to go there. Rose,
yeah, sorry.
You know, go. You guys go ahead. Go ahead. Anthony,
I wanted to say that I liked your when Elaine made the gratitude comment. It reminded me that I probably should take it up again. I used to bullet journal, and I would have a gratitude log, and like sometimes for me it was a simple thing like like I started like you start off like I should write something like, you know, profound or something. But then after journaling for a while, I'm just like, I'll write whatever is on my mind at the moment. So like if I felt like I was thankful for something, I just went back to that page and I wrote it. And some things were simple like, oh, I'm thankful for this really nice pen because it writes nicely. Or I'm thankful that I got to work half a day. Like this, sometimes it's like the simplest things. And then I would go back every now and again and I'd read the log, and like some things would make you smile again. And I forgot that I used to do that because like I for a while, like when I stopped getting out of the habit of journaling, I didn't fall right back in. So I think I should probably start that up. But like it sounds like, I know when you explain it to folks, sometimes it sounds like, oh my gosh, I'm gonna write what I'm thankful for. Like, what is that gonna do? But like, really, it like when you write it down, and then like sometimes even when you go back to it, like it brings back that emotion of like, oh, I really do like this. And sometimes it's simple, like I'm thankful for this person, or like it works. I can say it works.
I'm glad that kind of resonated with you. It's really simple. I am grateful for X, period. 3 things, 5 minutes, you're done. You know, you don't have to spend so much time unless that's something that's meaningful for you. If you want to make it more of that experience, you totally can. So it's very adaptable. And what I really like is it crosses all cultures. They did a study on this, and people feel gratitude the same way across 300 cultures. They have photographs, heat maps actually, and we all feel it in the same place. So that's my favorite tool.
Did anyone else have a question or comment or just want to add to any of the conversation? Feel free to jump in. You could add it to the chat or unmute yourself.
Can I add something, Rebecca?
Yeah, go ahead, Manang.
Okay, so when patients call in, a lot of them are really very anxious, and they want to stay home altogether. And I said, that's really fine to stay home. That's actually preventing the infection to get worse. So, but if you needed to see us, to tell us or tell me now, like what you think is your problem. So if people will just say, oh, I have back pain or a little bit of shoulder pain, then I can just see them on telemedicine and I can just give them some mild pain medications. But if a patient will say, I have earache and I cannot hear very well, I have drainage in my ear, or I have a lump in my skin or a lump in my breast, it looks like it's gonna pop soon, I will say, I need to see you. So you need to come to the clinic. Just make sure you wear a mask and I'll come outside, or you come into the clinic, we both wash our hands and get ready. So then, okay, make an appointment. What time can you see me? Because sometimes you don't need to see them if the problem is very minor. But if there's something like, I cannot see, or I think there's something in my eye or something in my ear, then I need to see you. Or if you cannot come here, then you need to go to the emergency room. Because sometimes people are just not educated. They thought everything is shut down and they cannot see a doctor anymore. So I said, if things are really bad, you're having a chest pain, you cannot breathe, go to the emergency room right away. So there's something for everybody. That's it.
Thank you, Manang. Yeah, I think that's another question too, right? Is that people aren't sure what is and is not open. Even right now, it's like because things are opening back up, I think it's still kind of unclear what you can and cannot do. I mean, I know they opened the beaches, right? But it's like, okay, so if they open the beaches, does that mean that the hospital, like I can go get my, like Manang was saying, can I go back to the dentist now because the beach is open? And I don't know, I'm wondering how you guys are thinking about how the opening up is going to be affecting people. Because I know Elaine mentioned that too, like everyone's been on this adrenaline high of being within this situation. And now that things might relax back, is that going to be a threat? You know, I mean, a threat, but like, is that going to affect, obviously it's going to affect our collective mental health and our individual mental health. But in terms of like the physical, I mean, we don't know about this like second wave situation. I wonder how that's affecting people's mental health. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Did you want me to?
Yeah.
Do you want me to answer to that, or our medical professionals? I'm not sure.
Whatever you guys think. Go ahead, Elaine.
Go ahead, Elaine.
I kind of had a thought, but now it kind of left my head. But I think that's still that invisible threat that we're experiencing, you know, and we still have to be on guard. When can we ever relax? You know, that's the kind of thing I was thinking about. And I thought, well, maybe we can relax over the summer because it's hot. And some research people have said, oh, it's safe, it's okay, you know, it's hot, it'll kill it. You know, plus we've been very, very vigilant here in Hawaii. I'm really grateful to be here too, with limiting the tourists coming in. But once that opens up, all of these things are going to resurface for us. And I think maybe taking this time in the middle to build up our tools, to build up our empathy, to build up some of our strengths again would be really beneficial, so that when it does happen, we don't fall back into maybe some of the negative habits that we picked up at like early April. For me, it was this Annie's caramel popcorn. I was killing it, like one style. That was just my response. Like, let me just eat some snacks. I'm not going anywhere. And then, you know, a couple weeks later, you're on the scale and you're freaking out. And then you got to call the doctor, like, I need pills. So I think this is a good time to come up with a plan, maybe, of how you want to react and how do you want to be. You can choose that. We get to pick how we want to feel. I don't know if we always remember that, but we do. We totally get a chance to pick that feeling. So planning, I think, is always a great thing to do.
There was another question from the chat, so I can jump in. Rose asked if we have your toolkits, Elaine, available. And I know we have the digital copies, but is there a way if we could get the physical postcards if we wanted them?
Yes, you could. I could mail them out.
Oh, awesome. So if participants are interested, we'll have them contact LAING. You can email us through the emails that we sent and just give us their mailing address and we'll pass them along to you, Elaine, and then you can mail them out.
Totally.
Oh, thank you so much.
We actually have in the follow-up survey that we're going to send you guys, like just as the wrap up, the end survey that we're going to send out, there's a little, I added a space on the form for you to add your mailing address. So if you guys want to fill that out and just be like, oh yeah, it says like, do you want to receive Elaine's toolkit via mail or something like that? And then you can just add it there. So that's part of the form. Because I think that's another part of it too. You know, it's funny, like as an artist too, there's been a lot of calls for mail art exchange. And I think there's something about like receiving that message via the mail, which somehow, you know, it's not a voicemail, it's not an email, it's not digital, like the actual physical receiving of a gift, I think is really powerful right now. And regardless of whether or not, like, you know, everyone's like, oh, is the postal service transmitting the virus? Like all of that kind of like paranoia kind of thing. Like my mom sent me zucchini bread in the mail that she made, and I sent her something back. And like just those kinds of acts, I think, are really powerful. So even just getting a single postcard, that's like, and I've been doing that for my friends too. I've just been sending stuff out in the mail and just being like, you know, like, just want to thank, like, I'm grateful for you. Yeah. I sent Anthony a copy of my zine. You know, like, I think those are really powerful little acts, like the random act of kindness that Elaine was talking about, that can be really powerful.
And I made these so you can write on them. They're not feel like actual hard paper. You can take notes. People don't want to write on them. But already so download the PDF online. It's pretty much everywhere in case you don't want to write on it. So, but yeah, they feel really nice in your hand. They really do. I agree with you. That tangible something is always nice. I'm not sending any rocks though. So.
Too heavy.
Still too heavy.
Something else about the rock situation, just the rocks in general, and like what I think that how that also might relate. I mean, I don't know that much about pohaku, like Hawaiian rocks. Like the rock itself, I think in a lot of cultures is just really symbolic, right? I know, like, I'm half Jewish, and when we go to the cemetery, you always bring a rock and you put it on top of the gravestone. And, you know, rock in general just has like, because
It's
like,
Ili, right?
what? Anito?
Like Ili, like where you're from. It's like the smallest part, like a physical space.
So it has a location, and it's ancient, and it's hard, and it's like a listener, you know, like it's been listening and absorbing everything that goes around it, and you know, in it and within it and on top of it. Like I think about the rocks at the bottom of the stream here in the Pele stream here in Palolo, and I think like those are they're almost like these like grandfathers, like listening and holding space for everything else to build upon. And so I think from like, you know, from those kind of perspectives, if you think about like our ancestors and the animistic, more animistic thinking, like pre-Christian, pre-colonial thinking, everything has a spirit. And so the rock itself even has a spirit too. And I think when I was talking to a Hawaiian friend of mine who was talking about making a pohaku to beat kalo with, to make poi. So like you have your big wooden board, and then you have a rock that you'll mash the kalo with, that the pohaku actually chooses you. So when you go out into the field to choose your stone, the stone is actually choosing you. And so there's something there too about like the agency of the material itself that you're working with, like the agency of the rock being like, you're just kind of like transmitting the message through you, you know, painting on top of it, and then that's going out into the world to like continue to share its message. So something about that I think is just in terms of working with the rock material. So yeah, thanks for sharing that, Elaine.
And then we have one more question from the group chat. Nikki asks, Elaine, do you have your tools accessible for others, such as a website, or have you been doing workshops for other groups? She's thinking about nonprofit networks she belongs to.
Yes to both.
Mm-hmm.
And you can, I guess we can, are we going to share our email addresses too? Or if you just want to connect us, Rebecca, if you're okay with that?
Yeah, that's fine. I think when we do a follow-up email, we're going to actually include the Zoom recording. We're going to have the toolkit that Elaine shared. I can share Elaine's social media or email, whatever you prefer to connect everybody. So and I know Elaine does workshops for other folks too. So if Nikki, you want to tap her in to, you know, work with you guys on something, I think that would be really helpful. I just want to give total transparency and say that I saw Elaine's posting on a Facebook COVID-19 group that I'm a part of. It's like I'm in a couple of different like support network groups for people who are, you know, organizing and doing different stuff, and even just generic citizen groups on Facebook where people are sharing resources, which have been really helpful for me. And Elaine posted something like, hey, I have these tools and I really want to share them. And I was like, oh, I wonder if Elaine would be able to join us for this. So that's another thing too that I think has been helpful. It's like the social media is such a double-edged sword, right? Like it's like you can get in the deep hole of weird news stuff and just paranoid thinking, or you could get into like the resource sharing aspect of it. So I want to thank Elaine for coming into this, because it was, you know, it was just a flyer I saw on Facebook, and I was like, oh, I think that could really work for us. And I think also specifically thinking about the Filipino community, because it is so family oriented, right? Like it is so much about community sharing, and like Manang Marianela was saying in the beginning, like people are just dropping off food, people are just bringing stuff by. I mean, every community is like this. The Hawaiians are like that too. Like Japanese people are very supportive in Hawaii in general, right? Like the ohana and the extended ohana is the base of all of the culture here. And so I think the more tools that we have to keep sharing with each other and to keep gathering in these kind of ways is really important, because that's the foundation. So I think it's yeah, thank you for everyone's contributions today. I think it was a really good kind of way for all of us to reflect on what's going on and just be mindful of how we need to sort of plan and keep moving forward so we can maintain that empathy and have it for ourselves too, right? Like, I think that's another aspect of it. Did anyone else have questions or want to share any anecdotes or anything?
Elaine, where did you get your paint from, or the Mod Podge? Like, where do you usually buy that from?
Oh, I just got it from Walmart before they were completely decimated. And we always have, my daughter's an artist too, like she paints. My whole house is covered in her artwork. So we always have stuff for making masks, which is another art intervention I've done with people with trauma, is making masks. Yeah, so we always have tons. You should see my deck. It was black, nice black wood. It's all covered in every color paint. It's like a rainbow now. So yeah, just any store. Target in Kapolei at least is completely wiped out as well. But I did want to say that I did buy the rocks from Home Depot. I was really careful and sensitive about not grabbing them from any streams, the woods, the beach, unless a rock particularly kind of stuck out to me. I've avoided that. And real important to keep it sealed and use non-toxic materials, you know, because especially if you want to toss it in the ocean, you don't want to make anything sick, even though I'm sure it would dilute. I'm not a scientist, I'm not a marine biologist, but that was real important to me to keep everything, you know, sealed up and waterproofed it. So it's relatively inexpensive to get started, and it'll last for hours. Like I said, I still have half a bag. So
I think you can try Ben Franklin, Anthony, too. They might have more paint stuff. I actually have, someone gave me like a ton of acrylic paint. I'm not sure, I have to check to see how non-toxic it is, but if people need paint, I have a bag like sitting right here. I was gonna donate it to the K-Vibe folks, but if people need it, I have them.
I was just curious about the Mod Podge too, because I had never used Mod Podge before.
Yeah, and I didn't use it as well, I'm sorry, as a waterproofing or sealant. I had no idea. I thought it was just kind of like a glue. But so, I mean, I don't know if you can tell the difference. This one is kind of shiny because I did put the Mod Podge first, and this one is flat, no Mod Podge.
Oh, Mod Podge. I've been calling it Mod Podge.
So before and after is when I've been doing it. So yeah.
I was just gonna say it's
fun.
Collages or any other kind of like sealing anything, like if you, even if you like paint and like put like stuff on a chair, you could Mod Podge over it, and you can get like magazine clippings like on furniture. I mean, you can do like all kinds of really cool stuff. It's a nice tool to have in your toolkit. So Rose is saying, thank you, LAING, for coordinating this, and Marianela, Noe, and Elaine for sharing your time. I enjoyed this workshop. I'm so glad you came, Rose. Thank you so much. I know Jordan and Danny and Nikki are on there too. Is that Vanessa? Hi, Vanessa.
Hey, guys.
But yeah, I mean, technically we were gonna go until noon, but I think like if we're wrapping up, we're wrapping up. That's totally fine, unless anyone has any questions. Everyone can use this extra 30 minutes that you had allotted on your calendar for the workshop to do some gratitude journaling.
Or Agyamanak acknowledgements.
Oh yes, okay. Oh yes, hold on, let's see. Our Agyamanak acknowledgement.
Yeah. I made it Ilocano, see?
I love that. I love that. Yes. I'm just sharing our Facebook and our Instagram page, because we do have a bunch of other workshops coming up too. And I'm sorry I didn't put that flyer there, but we'll share them in the next coming emails. But the next one is going to be next week with Jules and Jamie, and they actually just went on an amazing, it was really an educational trip to the Philippines, where they studied with several binabayan, which are like healers, holistic healing practitioners, ancestral practices. And so Jules and Jamie are going to be sharing next week with us different methods of how to incorporate more ancestral practices of very similar stuff, gratitude, awe, and being in balance with you, and you being in balance with your environment. So that's going to be next week, same time, 10 to noon on the 30th, that's Saturday. And if you guys want to register, you can go to lainghawaii.org. And we're also, again, just I'm shouting out the donor box. If people feel like donating, that's great. And if not, not a problem, because we know that everyone's in kind of tough financial situation right now too. So no worries about that. But if you feel like you can give too. Anthony, are we missing anything? What am I forgetting?
No, about our programming, or any programming that we offer, definitely follow us on Facebook and LAING Hawaii. And you can also sign up for to get emails on our website, lainghawaii.org. We have shifted, if you've taken our courses before, shifted our delivery system online because of COVID-19. So even our future programming, we're considering trying to move that online. So our language courses, so be on the lookout for that, and be on the lookout for other workshops that we are planning online as well. Because there's a bunch in the series. So like Rebecca mentioned, next week is with Jules and Jamie for ancestral healing and tools and like everyday ritual practices. And then we also have a movement class, a dance class. It's Check the Tinikling. So I think that's on June 6th. There's 2 time slots for that, so that you can split up. So it's a Tinikling dance, a movement class. And we have some for geared towards specifically as a Philippine students, and like a roundtable talk back, and another one with Grace Kaliktan, and she's going to be talking about having healthy sex conversations within the Philippine X family, especially since everybody's at home, and dealing with like sex orientation, gender identification, and things like that, especially now that everybody's in close and how to have those conversations as you are a teenager or a child. So just if you guys are interested in those workshops or know anybody that's interested, definitely pass that information along. We'll email you the flyers for these as well. And we'll email the resources out as well for this workshop.
And what about the t-shirts? How can we get our hands on one of those?
Oh, we'll send you one.
Oh, awesome. It's a nice looking shirt.
Yeah,
So.
we'll send you one.
And if you know anybody else, just shoot us an email and we'll get it to you.
Okay.
Well, thank you everyone so much. That was really wonderful. I'm so happy to see everyone's face. And even though we can't, be in class together, I think this was a really nice way to just share what we have to share with each other. I think honestly, the power of the community coming together, like Manang Marianela said in the beginning, is like the best thing that's coming out of all of this. And there's like, yeah, I know there's a writer that I like to read, Rebecca Solnit. She wrote the book about like mansplaining. I'll type it in here, Rebecca Solnit. And maybe I'll send that out with the email resource follow-up, because she has a great podcast about I think it was like the 89 earthquake in San Francisco, and how that was like such a major disaster for the city. But a lot of her thinking is just about just hope and resiliency, and the sort of, instead of thinking of as humans as sort of like inherently kind of like, clashing with each other or fighting, that actually our humanity is based in our ability to support each other, and like to always come together and always support the collective, and that we're not really as competitive and I guess like Darwinistic thinking as like, like only the strong will survive as we really think. So yeah, I'll share that resource too with everybody, because I think about her a lot. But yeah, does anyone have anything else to add? Okay, awesome. Agyamanak, agyaman kami, mahalo. Thanks everybody. Take a couple minutes today for your gratitude journal.
Thank you.
Go outside and play.
Everybody, or go outside and play. Have a great day, you guys.
You too. Thank you. Bye, you guys.